Bienvenidos a la Universidad del Mar. Bienvenidos al Congreso Internacional Conjunto de la International Studies Association, ISA, y la Asociación Mexicana de Estudios Internacionales, AMEI 2025, que lleva por título Posicionando a América Latina y México en las relaciones internacionales. Es un verdadero placer recibirlos en México y en Huatulco, en la hermosa costa de Oaxaca. Ahora, si me lo permiten, voy a cambiar al idioma inglés. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Universidad del Mar, and welcome to the ISA-AMEI Joint International Conference 2025 titled Positioning Latin America and Mexico in International Relations. It is a true pleasure to welcome you all to Mexico and to Huatulco and to the beautiful coast of Oaxaca. This summer conference follows a list of intensive global ISA activities: Hong Kong 2017, Quito 2018, Ghana 2019, Belgrade 2019, Morocco 2023, Rijeka in Croatia 2024, and now we can proudly add to this global list Huatulco, Oaxaca 2025. To begin our opening ceremony, it is my honor to introduce the distinguished guests, authorities, and scholars who are joining us at the head table. It is our distinct honor to welcome the presence of Dr. Siba N'Zatioula Grovogui, ISA President. Also, we are deeply honored to be joined today by Dr. Adriana Ortega, AMEI President. We are privileged to have among us today Maestra María de los Ángeles Peralta, Rector of Universidad del Mar and the Oaxaca State System, 𝐂𝐭. We are pleased to welcome the presence of Dr. Ricardo Villanueva, Program Chair and Director of the Institute of International Studies Isidro Fabela at Universidad del Mar. We also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Rosario Enriquez, Provost, Academic Vice Rector at Universidad del Mar. And last but never least, Dr. David Sarquís, former full-time professor at Universidad del Mar and for many years active member of ISA and AMEI. Thank you all for joining us today. Welcome, everyone. I will now give the floor to Maestra María de los Ángeles Peralta, Rector of Universidad del Mar and the Oaxaca State University System, 𝐂𝐭.
It's a privilege for Universidad del Mar to host so many specialists in international relations. These professionals have selected our institution as a venue to deliberate and proposal aimed at addressing the challenges faced by Latin America. Our institution's commitment to international studies can be traced back to the origins, a commitment that can be attributed to the visionary leadership Modesto Seara Vázquez. In his capacity as a member of the International Studies Association, he was instrumental in advocating for the hosting of this regional conference. The university community stands prepared to extend its support, offering the hospitality of its academic facilities for meetings and discussions that seek to enhance our comprehension of global trends. Let me introduce just two important issues for our country: Until recently, Mexico's primary focus was on integrating in the nearshoring wave by leveraging trade agreements with North America and in strengthening economic ties across key productive sectors. However, at present, we are confronted with disruptive changes in the composition of regional markets with uncertain impacts across many economic sectors. This necessitates implementation of strategic decisions concerning the diversification of markets and the reinforcement of the domestic production. The upcoming conference aims to shed light on such issues, drawing insights from experts who have studied analogous economic transformation in another context. In addition, Oaxaca is undergoing a transformation period in its economic development, marked by the modernization of critical port infrastructure throughout the isthmus of Tehuantepec. It has the potential to attract multinational investments, production, and logistics, thereby generating a promising opportunity for regional economic growth and improving the living standards of our population. However, it's imperative that this progress be achieved with a strong commitment to sustainability, cultural preservation, and social sustainability. We sincerely hope that all of us find in this meeting the answers we need. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the directors who chose Universidad del Mar for this regional conference, especially the President of the International Studies Association, Siba N'Zatioula, the President of the Mexican International Studies Association, Adriana Ortega, Ricardo Villanueva, Program Chair and Director of International Relations Institute at Universidad del Mar. But also to all the organizers who've been working with academics and students to welcome you. Thanks all of them. We hope you enjoy your visit.
Thank you to Maestra María de los Ángeles Peralta, Rector of Universidad del Mar and the Oaxaca State University System. I now have the honor of inviting Dr. Siba N'Zatioula Grovogui, ISA President, to share his message.
Hi, I want to thank you all for inviting us, welcoming us here in Mexico for this conference. I will have final remarks to make maybe on the 6th, and I want to reserve a lot of my comments for that day. But since the conference is about the place of Mexico and Latin America in the world, I just want to remind the young people in this room that Mexico has mattered a lot for the modern world. Yes, Mexico has mattered a lot for the rest of the world. For me as an African, the Mexican Revolution happened before the Russian Revolution, I think. It's the first modern revolution. It inspired a lot of people in the global south, we call today. I am reminded as I stand here that until Vicente Fox, and I'm not getting into politics, came to power, Mexico was definitely in the majority at the General Assembly and the ICJ, and it mattered a lot. I am not into nostalgia. I'm not sure to praise the pre, but I'm just saying that Mexico mattered. What happened after the collapse of the Soviet Union is that we thought we had one unified international order, and it turned out that we perhaps were seduced and that it didn't materialize. And so as young people sit here today, I'm hoping that we can bring back that Mexico that gave people of the world asylum, that gave us the law of the sea, that back every African country at the ICJ for decolonization, and that gave hope to a lot of people around the world. That is not nostalgia, it's our history. And I really hope that by the end of this conference, we really think for our new circumstances, what role Mexico can play in the world today. Thank you for welcoming us, and I hope you have a very wonderful and productive conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Grovogui, for your message. It is now my pleasure to invite Dr. Ricardo Villanueva, Program Chair, to take the floor to share his remarks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lozano, for your kind presentation. Siba Grovogui, President of ISA, Adriana Ortega, President of AMEI, María de Los Ángeles Peralta, Rector of this university, Rosario Enriquez, Vice Rector of Universidad del Mar, keynote speakers, special guests, dear participants, colleagues, dear students, amigos todos. Welcome to this joint Congress of ISA and AMEI. Why are we here today? What kind of participants do we have for this Congress? What can we expect of the program that we have ahead of us? Well, this morning, I'd like to address 3 points for you. Number 1, how this Congress came to be. Second, I'll give you an overview of the participants we have for the Congress. And third, I'll talk to you about the program that we have. So number 1, let me start with this picture. If you are from UMAR, you certainly know who this fine gentleman is. If you are from AMEI, you do as well. If you are from Mexico and study international relations, international law, you should know about him as well. But if you come from abroad, maybe you don't know him. He is Modesto Seara Vázquez. And he is, I believe, one of the main reasons why we are all here. Now, why is it the case? Let me give you 3 reasons. First, he is the founding rector of this university. We wouldn't have the buildings that we have here, the staff, the students, the colleagues, even myself. This Congress wouldn't be possible. Second, he is the founder of AMEI. So if you come to an AMEI Congress, that's why AMEI exists, right? AMEI exists because of him. AMEI was created in 1967. Then it was named the Mexican Institute of International Studies, and then renamed to the Mexican Association of International Studies later on. So, and third, it is because of you, all of the participants of the Congress, the volunteers that we have, the staff that we are here. And let me tell you a little bit of the history of how this Congress was devised by Dr. Seara. And that was 5 years ago. In 2019, he and the then president of ISA, Siba, is here with us, but the president at that time, Mark Boyer, had conversations with Dr. Seara, and they decided to have a Congress, a joint Congress, AMEI and ISA. Then, unfortunately, the pandemics arrived, and the Congress had to be postponed. the next year, I remember to have posted something on Facebook saying, we will have a Congress in 2021. I kind of thought that the pandemic was going to be a little bit better at that time, but it kept going very strong, so they had to postpone the Congress again. The following year, 2022, unfortunately, Modesto Seara Vázquez passed away in December. After that, almost a year after that, Mark Boyer contacted Alberto Lozano Vázquez, then the head of the Department of International Studies here at UMAR, and said to him, how do we make this Congress to happen? We have visited the Congress. Jennifer Fontanella was here, by the way, as well, for the site visit. And we want this Congress at UMAR. So what do we do? Then Alberto was helpful to get in touch with the then President of AMEI, Pedro González Olvera, who is here with us as well, and the elected President of AMEI, Adriana Ortega, who is now the President of AMEI. And they agreed to fully support the Congress. And then after that, the rector of our current university also agreed to fully support this Congress. So we have leadership as well that has been involved. Lots of people in 5 years. Second, let me speak to you a little bit about who we are in numbers. What kind of participants do we have? Well, roughly, we are expecting a little bit less than 300 participants in very exciting panels, very interesting, special in about the myths of international relations. But there are many panels about gender, security, Latin America, Mexico, and so on. We also have a large amount of participants that come here as listeners, around 190, at least. That was the number that I had yesterday. And what kind of people do we have? Like, from where are we expecting the people to come from? Well, most of the people, is from Mexico, right? But we have a big chunk from the United States, Canada. We will have people from China, India, Peru, Argentina, Germany, that we expect to be here. And in terms of language, even though most of us, I would say, speak English, and that's why we decided to do this ceremony in English, well, about half of the people who speak Spanish, then 39% English. But we have a multicultural, interesting group that we're going to have during the Congress. Now, finally, in terms of the program, we have 3 days to go ahead. We are now, as we all know, in the opening ceremony. And after it is inaugurated formally, we will have the first special address by my friend and colleague, or former colleague, David Sarquís. And then after that, we'll have 2 blocks. Well, we'll have 1 block actually first, and then after that, we'll have lunch from 12:30, or that's 12:15 to 2:30. We have arranged a shuttle bus just in case you want to take a shuttle bus for lunch and go to city center. Unfortunately, we have limited space. We only have 40 seats. But if you arrive before 12:30 and you get a place, you can go to the city center. I would personally recommend you to take a taxi. Why? Because it would be cheap. The bus is free, but the taxi will be $2 or something like that. So it's nothing. Right? And second, because it's more comfortable. But we have the shuttle bus anyway, just in case. It will leave you close to the city center. Ask the driver where you can take the bus back again. If he doesn't speak English, and I'm sure he doesn't, but please ask other people there. There will be other people who speak Spanish and can ask the driver, and you can, start to share some comments and whatever with each other. So after lunch, we have the second block of panel sessions, and then we have a cultural event in this hall. Now, I'm sure you all heard that Mexico is famous for dancers and traditional dancing, right? Well, Oaxaca is, according to me, the most famous of Mexico for dancing. So you should be here, and we would like you to be here for the cultural event at 4:30 in this hall. And then after that, we have a reception outside the hall. We will have free tacos. So if that's not something that brings you here, I don't know what it will be. Then after that, the shuttle bus again will be outside to take you to the city center if you go somewhere to the city center close, or you can take a taxi. There will be plenty of taxis outside. Now, that's the bus that you should be looking for. And that's the place where you will pick it up. It's in a park close to the city center. Just get familiar when you get there. Right. Now, for the second day, we have 3 panel sessions and the launch. And we also have at 4:20 the keynote. We have Andrea Olsner for a very special keynote that we are expecting on the theme of this conference. And then after that, we have the second reception in the same place. The keynote will be here as well, and the second reception will take place outside as well. And we have free food as well, so we want you to be here. And finally, for the third day, we have also 3 panel sessions and the launch break. And then we have a closing ceremony at 4:30 where the president of ISA, Siba, will be speaking to us about the theme of the conference as well. So, in conclusion, there's an exciting program ahead of us. Behind it lies the work of several leaders, staff, and volunteers, and all of you. How successful this program will be, well, that will depend on all of us. On behalf of the organizing team, welcome, thank you for coming, and enjoy your Congress.
Muchas gracias, Ricardo. We now turn the program over to Dr. Adriana Ortega, AMEI President, who will address the formal opening of this joint international conference.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you to all the participants here today. Of course, we must thank to the Rector of UMAR, Maestra María de Los Ángeles Peralta. Thank you. And also Dr. Rosario Enriquez, Vice Rector of UMAR. Of course, I have to recognize the effort of the organizers and the program chair of this conference, Dr. Carla Machain, of course, Dr. Ricardo, who is more than a program chair. He's really the organizer of this conference. We also want to thank our colleagues from ISA, course, President of ISA, Siba Grovogui, and also our colleagues Jennifer Fontanella and Adelina Macami that were so important for this, the organizing of this conference, and of course the entire ISA team. And this conference is very significant for AMEI, as Dr. Ricardo said, and I'm sure that our founder, Dr. Seara Vázquez, will be very, very pleased with it. And I would also like to acknowledge the efforts of former AMEI presidents for this initiative, Professor Alberto Lozano, of course, Professor Damaso Morales, who signed the original agreement with ISA for this conference, and also Ambassador Pedro González. Thank you to all of them. As scholars of international relations, we are at a point that we are very dissatisfied with what we have or have not accomplished in our field. Of course, the optimistic among us may say that we have learned a lot from history and the world could be much worse. However, in my opinion, that is not enough. The planet has reached its limits as a result of realism and liberalism, and human society is right now at a critical juncture. To paraphrase the title of one of the Dr. Seara's book, this is a decisive hour in a global crisis. I noticed that the next ISA conference team proposed a return to fundamentals of international relations. And I think that's the main problem of international relations if we return to fundamentals. I mean, what fundamentals, you know? I teach IR Theory 101, for our students beginning in the BA programs. And of course, our students have to learn the trajectory of our discipline, but also to criticize all of it. I noticed that because this repetition of traditional ideas about war and peace and the deep stigmatization, the deep racism, the bordering, at all levels, that is repeated all over and over in classrooms and universities and by practitioners, results in the reproduction of the same problems that the world right now is facing. So a starting point is to discuss the myths of international relations, and that's why our colleagues of UMAR are going to organize a very interesting panel today, and I think it's a very good starting point. We need new ontologies, new fundamentals, new axiologies, I think. New ideas, new theories that lead to new forms of diplomacy and intercultural understanding. And I agree with Siba that we need more multilateralism, and Mexico had to do more. The new fundamentals of societies and collective responsibilities, and also the guarantees of individual and collective rights. And Huatulco, Oaxaca, and Mexico are offering us that opportunity during these days of this conference. Now, I will give the opening statement in Spanish, because you know that we have this formality. And please stand up for the opening statement. ¿Qué hora es? Siendo las 9:44 de la mañana de este día, 4 de junio del 2025, en la Universidad del Mar, declaro formalmente inaugurado el Congreso Conjunto entre International Studies Association y la Asociación Mexicana de Estudios Internacionales. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Please enjoy the conference, enjoy UMAR, and enjoy Huatulco.
Thank you, Dr. Ortega, for your kind words. And now, as our first activity, I will give the floor to Dr. David Sarquís, who will address us next with the lecture, The Study of International Relations in Mexico and Latin America, Challenges and Contributions.
Muchas gracias, Alberto. Thank you all for being here, distinguished members of the table. Para mí es un gusto estar de vuelta en casa, aunque sea temporalmente, y ver a muchos de mis hijos por aquí con el ánimo encendido para escuchar esta conferencia. It is really a great pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. This is, as far as I can recall, only the 5th time the International Studies Association and AMEI have worked together organizing a joint meeting. Even though collaboration between both associations has been wide and fruitful for over 40 years now. It goes without saying that this is one of the most important legacies of the founder of our Mexican association, Dr. Seara Vázquez, a name most internationalists in Mexico and some abroad know well and respect deeply. To begin with, I wish to take a couple of minutes to honor his memory with a brief anecdote, which he always enjoyed telling his friends, and which will hopefully tell you more about the man than an extensive review of his curriculum. It refers to his experience as a young graduate from law school in his native Galicia in Spain, about to make a vital decision regarding his professional future. In his own words, following the inertia that motivated most of my classmates, I was considering the option of applying for a position as a notary granted by the state bureaucracy. He goes on to say, I was subjected to these stupefying routines for about 3 months. And then one day, I began to daydream. I dreamt that after 3 years, I managed to get the position as a notary, and they sent me to some small town on the countryside where I would sleep, eat, hopefully find a beautiful girl in town, and then grow fat, grow old, amidst the boredom guaranteed by the assurance that nothing out of the ordinary would ever happen there. He concludes with a gesture of self-assurance. I was terrified. So I changed course and decided to follow a path where I would not work to know less, but always to know more, and where the uncertainty of the future forced me to take risks of defeat, but also opened up prospects of hope. I think there's a beautiful lesson about how action conquers destiny here. It seems to me too many people settle for the apparent security offered by this slow, inertial movement and shrink from the challenge of uncertainty and the fear of change. The risk of taking the reins of our own lives into our own hands is always frightening, and there is never any guarantee of success. There may be those who think the meager security of a position with a promise of permanence is better. But they're certainly not the people who change the world. Even if at the end of the road, only the satisfaction of the attempt remains, it seems to me it's a great gain compared to the insipid taste of living crouched in the shadows. Now, when the courage to venture down the road an uncharted path is crowned with success, well, we're then standing before the kind of individuals who make history, and that is always a great privilege. That's the kind of man Dr. Seara was. That is how he accomplished the creation of the state systems of universities in Oaxaca at a time and a place where no one truly believed this could be accomplished. Now, back to the topic of the conference. As you probably read in the invitation to participate in this event, the conference aims at highlighting contributions and challenges faced by Latin America and Mexico in the study of international relations, both as an empirical field of observation and an academic discipline. I found it quite interesting to notice how the difference is clearly stated to distinguish the field of practice from the discipline. This is so because there is no universal consensus on this matter. Most analysts can recognize the field of study without any problem, but even today, not everyone accepts IR as a discipline on its own merit. Some even think it's a waste of time trying to consider it as such. Too broad to be covered by a single discipline, my friend 𝐂𝐮 told me once. Hence, the multidisciplinary nature of the internationally, according to most analysts, including, by the way, Dr. Seara. In brief, a field of study is a wide area of knowledge, a kind of stage where different events occur, social events at that. However, different from those at the domestic level, with the discipline being a more specific, structured branch of learning focused on that field, the international. A field, then, is a broad spatial and temporal category, while the discipline would be a specific course of study within that category. The problem is, of course, the interchangeable use of both concepts, which often results in confusion for the newcomers to the study of international relations. Dr. Seara was an internationalist at heart. He gave substantial impulse to the study of IR in this country. As I just mentioned, he belonged to the group of experts who would recognize IR as a field of study, but not as a discipline. We spoke at large on that matter, and although I never managed to convince him of the need for a discipline of IR as such, he always questioned the idea of the proper object of study for the discipline. He always respected my argument, but held on to the idea that the field had to be explored by different disciplines, not an all-embracing one. David Lake has expressed a view that clearly captures the spirit of Dr. Seara's approach to theory. Referring to mid-range theories, he says, theories are preferred which can link the incentives and actions of real individuals or possibly groups of relatively homogeneous individuals to policy outcomes in a consistent way. As many other intellectuals in this region, he was also skeptical about the role of theory. Not that he did not believe in theory or the importance of theoretical thinking. His main concern, as he once told me, was that theoreticians tend to get too tangled up on the theory of theory, which normally winds up being a mess regarding the process of thinking about international phenomena. I just love to talk to the man. He always said we should focus on identifying concrete problems and looking for specific solutions to those problems. In fact, Tigner also confirmed this view when she wrote, "Those regional scholars who do attempt to distance themselves from events on the ground are normally scorned for being too academic." the primacy of practical knowledge susceptible of being translated into policy formula, and the scanty theoretical work in Latin America regarding our theory largely derived from this condition. And I bring these topics up because it has been very relevant in the development of IR in the region. According to Santa Cruz, Mexican IR, and possibly in some way in other Latin American countries, IR is akin to a platypus, the peculiar creature not only in that it stands apart from the contributions of both culturally similar countries, as those of Latin America, and structurally similarly positioned states such as Canada, as well as from those originating in the United States. But it's also characterized by its paucity. Given this account, it would be difficult to speak meaningfully about Mexican contributions to the study of IR. Despite intense academic and practical activity in the country, Santa Cruz bases his judgment on the scant production of original theoretical work penned by Mexican authors, and the large amount of literature following mainstream perspectives. There is a lot of theoretical work here, there's no doubt about that. It's not too difficult to find. It's just that it's not located too far away from mainstream traditional thought. Dominguez shares a similar view. A decade and a half ago, she posed the question, what kind of training do students of IR receive in Mexico? She focused her analysis on two main institutions, Colegio de México and CIDE, the Center for International Economic Studies. And she graduated from the first. And when she examined the programs almost 2 decades after she concluded her studies, she found out that the programs had not changed significantly. She also found out that the professors there were still the same, and that most of the courses had the same basis that she had had 20 years before. After the interviews in both institutions, she found out that IR mainstream theories were the pattern that most professors and students followed. And of course, she found very little evidence of anything independent from that particular view. She noticed that Colegio de México chose to focus on regional studies, whereas the Center for International Studies, Economic International Studies, focused itself on the economic side of the international relations, which is good. Both of them specialize in these given areas, but neither had a larger picture that should characterize international relations. As a matter of fact, still a lot of professors, especially those Mexicans who study abroad, come back with the idea, learned abroad, that international relations should be a sub-discipline of something else, mainly political science, in some cases sociology of international relations, or that the different fields of specialty should depend on their own mother discipline, for example, international law or international economics. Maybe if you're too brave and venture a different field, international history, as an independent field. But the problem remains of whether or not you can have a broad, all-embracing discipline of international affairs, which remains an unanswered question, at least with an answer universally accepted. A field of international activity in Mexico and Latin America can be traced back to the early days of the region's independence from colonial domination during the early part of the 19th century. There may not have been an academic reflection on it, but the roots of international perspectives are clearly anchored in the need of a foreign policy for the newly born American states. Luciano Tomasini from Argentina used to say that perhaps one of the main reasons why theoretical work had not been more deeply developed in this region was due to the fact that foreign policy concerns were more important for Latin American states rather than an independent theoretical view of it. This theory has a lot of problems in these respects because it requires of an abstract way of thinking, which does not normally conform to the way students are taught, especially in this part of the world, where we tend to learn what has been said about how the international system works, or whether or not there is an international society, or other topics of that nature. So yes, there is a lot of work, there is a lot of thinking in Latin America about international affairs, but we have been mostly pressed by the urge to find practical answers, as Dr. Seara suggested, to the specific problems of the region, which I don't necessarily find mutually excluding the other aspect. However, it seems to be more important if you're going to work somewhere as a state official or as an academic to focus on the practical analysis than in the development of theory. My colleague here, Brian Schmidt, posed a very interesting question, which I found very attractive, regarding the nature of local contributions to the development of international theory. He asked specifically, should the history of the field be written from a cosmopolitan frame of reference that does not pay significant attention to distinct national and institutional differences, or whether it's necessary to approach this task from within clearly delimited national context? Despite the appearance of an irreducible dichotomy, both possibilities actually exist, and whether they're mutually excluding or complementary is still a matter of debate. The point is that even though there has been clear influences of the American view of IR in the development of theory in Latin America, as in many other parts of the world, there is a growing number of claims from several national epistemic communities telling their own specific disciplinary perspective of history. Towards the end of the 50s, Miguel León Portilla, a Mexican historian, wrote a seminal work called The Vision of the Vanquished. And I found it quite interesting that this work anticipated in at least a quarter of a century the postmodern view that there is only one objective truth to tell of a specific historical event. Because León Portilla presented side B of the traditional narrative on the process of conquest. And this is, I think, one of the main reasons why it is important that we start paying more attention to the different voices coming not only from Latin America, but from other regions of the world, not necessarily contesting mainstream theory, but adding, enriching the view of the international to make it a more democratic discipline. Thank you for listening.
Gracias, David. Well, and this is how we conclude this significant ceremony. We wish you all an excellent conference and success in your presentations. Thank you so much for coming.